It was exactly 20 years ago to this day, at the 1988 Clearwater Festival at Sandy Hook, that I did my first festival performance with Helyn Chrobocinski. And for the next 20 years, we played many more festivals as we enjoyed a great friendship and worked with the others in bringing you this great festival. And, too often we think of life's experiences in terms of beginnings and endings. But to think of a lifetime in this way is to ignore the permanent effect of life's experiences. The events and the people we love never leave us. So Helyn is still very much with us and will always be with us. Not just in the festival that you see around you today, but in the ways she touched all of the people who were privileged to know her. To know the kind of impact that Helyn had on me, you have to understand where I was back in the 1980s and what I was going through. My first marriage had just ended, and the band I was in, JP Got Rock, was just starting to get some success locally. Then Got Rock broke up and left me with pretty much nothing, and I ended up paying my keyboard player, David Sheeran, $40 a week so I could stay with him until things got settled. At the time, I appeared to be going through a bad period. My band was gone, my marriage was gone, I didn't have a career, and to top it all off, I had just had a kidney removed. I was approaching 30, and most of my friends had grown up and moved on, and I seemed to be alone, and I was thinking that maybe I wasn't very good at this game of life. But if I had known back then what the next few years would have in store for me, I'm sure things wouldn't have seemed nearly as bleak. A steady cast of characters was coming into my career and into my life with whom I would share some of my best gigs, my best times, and it would impact me forever. Damone Runyon, Mark Twain, O. Henry themselves couldn't have assembled a more varied and more colorful and more talented group of people. And the glue that held us all together was our love for music, and for many of us, our love for this festival. Vinnie Lopez, Steve Shredder, John Larashi, Frankie Lee, David Sheeran, Big Danny, Little Vinnie, the Bopper, John Cavallo, many, many more. Straight into this crowd of rogues came Helyn, mother of all mothers and hippie of all hippies. At that first festival in 1988, I was nursing a broken foot, and Helyn's husband Richie had to cart me around in a wheelchair. But I still managed to perform a red-hot version of Gimme Shelter with Helyn. I sat in with Big Danny and the Boppers, and I even did a children's set with Danny, which you see over here. From that year onwards, through meeting after meeting, rehearsal after rehearsal, and festival after festival, Helyn enjoyed some of the greatest times of our lives. The 1992 festival, when it rained for 6 days straight. The 20th annual festival in 1995, when Pete Seeger showed up when we ran five stages. The 1988 festival, when Helyn and I did a special tribute set for Pete Seeger, and Pete Seeger and Bruce Springsteen showed up. A lot of you remember the 2001 festival, which was the first festival here in Asbury Park, where Bruce himself gave a full set of his music, and he stayed long afterwards to sign autographs and have his pictures taken. Right up until last year's festival, when Chris Barron spoke to Helyn in her nursing home bed to tell her how much we missed her, and how we all hoped she would get better. You can't pay money for enjoyment like this, and you can't seek out such a fulfilling task as putting together this festival. You have to earn it through hard work, love for what you're doing, maybe even serendipity. But to think of it as ever being over is to ignore that even though a new adventure begins with each waking day, the events and the loved ones who have come before us stay part of our lives forever. Not that it always was fun and games. Some of you are aware of some of the bad things that happened after last year's festival. I went through a pretty bad time. But if you think in terms of life as transitions, instead of beginnings and endings, we might find it easier to live in peace and acceptance instead of fear, hostility, and judgment. If we have faith in ourselves and in each other, as Helyn had faith in me way back when, then maybe we can draw on that faith to make us stronger and accept the hard times, even as we accept the easy times we all experience. And accept our own faults, even as we see our faults in others. I suspect that no one knew this as well in heaven as Helyn. Helyn lived as if she feared nothing and no one, and hated no one, though many did cross her in the years we were together. That could be why she didn't let on how sick she really was these last few years, how lonely she was to have to spend so much of her time away from the man she loved and away from her family and friends as she was shuffled from nursing home to nursing home. She had come to accept the end as something natural, something transitional, not something that would pass, but something that was eternally passing. She knew that all must pass, but not all passing is an end. In the last few years, Helyn found it harder and harder to show up at this festival, but she was right with us, right up until the end. I remember one meeting last year when she was in and out of the nursing home. We called her to ask her advice on a couple of matters we were stuck on. Please believe me and the rest of the committee when I tell you that Helyn had lost none of her forcefulness, her persuasiveness, and her concern and love for Clearwater when she stayed on that phone for a good hour trying to get us to come to some kind of consensus. And that was the last time that some of us ever spoke to her. If Helyn were here right now, she would be thanking me. She was always thanking someone. I have literally containers full of her thank you notes and cards. But especially now, I have to throw it right back at her. No, Helyn, thank you for allowing me to be so much a part of your life for so long and to be part of Clearwater. Thanks to Bob Killian and to Pete Seeger for starting this great party. Thanks Clearwater for making our waterways that much cleaner, for giving us local musicians something else to fight for besides a record contract or a spot at the Stone Pony. And thanks for allowing us something to feel good about. Danny Gallagher hit on that last point when I first got involved with Helyn. You don't do Clearwater for the money or for the recognition or anything like that. You do it to get square with the man upstairs. And he was so right. I thank God for Danny also. Helyn, Danny, and the others who passed aren't gone. They're in the air we breathe and the waters we swim in. They're in the fights we fight to keep pollution under control and in the assurance that we get from knowing that no matter how hard the fight is, it's always easier when we do it together. They're in the music we sing, the love and support we give each other, and the lives we help our children and loved ones to live by working for this great cause.